Hey guys, what's up? It's La. And today I'm coming back with another episode of Car Rides with La. I got nothing. I don't know what I was talking about yesterday. It was some crazy stuff, and I don't remember a smidge of it. So forget it. Episode canceled. No, I'm saying no. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. I guess more of the same themes. I'm still kind of feeling. I felt fairly strange each of these 3 mornings when I woke up. When I woke up every morning this week, I just felt a strange energy, and I've been kind of waking up too early as well. I don't know. I guess I want to research into that, what you're supposed to do if you wake up like 30 minutes earlier than you should. You should probably just stay awake, but I went back to sleep not out of laziness, but just out of, I guess I thought it would be better or something. So that's what I did. I woke up and then went back to sleep for 30 minutes, but again, don't think it was because I was lazy, because I could have just stayed up. I did not need to do that, But I don't know. I guess in the split-second moment of being super tired, I just figured that's what made sense, so that's what I did, Now, yeah, I guess that's the whole thing, that whole maturity thing. I feel a different energy. It's a different kind of pressure that's coming through. Don't really know how else to explain it, but it's this feeling of really wanting and understanding the need to get things done. There's obviously a lot that I really need to be looking into and accomplishing. I guess I just don't really know where to start. But it's not bad. At least getting the framework down for it is important. Still worried about AI. I was proclaiming it as if it's a definite good. Now I'm kind of, now it's, I still think, I guess I have to proclaim it's good, because that's just who I am, right? I just think I'm always going to think that. I'm always going to feel that way. You got to embrace it. What's going to happen? Honestly, what is going to happen? What am I going to get out of getting upset about it? You just got to take things as they come. That's probably been a major lesson I've had to come to terms with. I'm a type of person where I'm always thinking about what's next. And that's not a bad trait to have, but especially in this world, it's a pretty bad trait to have. It's wait, what? It's a pretty good trait to have, because most people end up being the opposite. Most people are all over the place. They're not thinking ahead. They're just thinking in the present, or they're thinking behind. There's all kinds of stuff. There is just all kinds of thoughts out there. All over the place. There's no organization, So my thought style is very good. I think it's a very good thought style. It's really more of what the world needs, but now some would say, oh, the world needs more people who are present and grounded. I don't think so. I think for this specific moment and time we're heading in and all that stuff, I think we definitely need more people who are just chill and good and all that stuff. No, I don't even, that didn't make any sense. Sorry, I was on autopilot. People who are chill, good, and grounded, they're not going to make it. we're at a point where, whether we want to or not, and there's nobody to vilify over this, as I've already established my theory about that, there's nobody to vilify over it. Because whatever human, whether it was Peter Thiel or somebody else, would have been there anyway. Somebody would have came along and made the AI and made the mass surveillance and made all this stuff. So the whole bottom line is, it's not going to be a chill life. It's not. There's not going to be much chill about the future. It's going to be very strategic, very calculated, and I'm hoping that ushers in an era of justice for people like me. I'm kind of realizing, I think my generation, we were raised to think that life was a lot more special than it was. I think part of the rose-tinted issue was that people really tried hard with my gen, and I guess you can coincide that with my overall conceptual intellectualism that I had, even since I was a child. It was of such a clean fit for the 2000s, and then ultimately I grew up in the late 2000s, because when you're born, I don't really count that. So even though I was alive for the early 2000s, I don't know how much that truly shaped me, although I guess psychology would refute that, because it's birth to age 8 that's the most important. So I guess in the subconscious it was the 2000s, but in the conscious it was really the 2010s that shaped me. Truly. I mean, that's really what, I truly remember, is only the late 2000s and then in throughout the 2010s. I think most of my beliefs now, maybe is that birth to age 8 theory, is that just altered because I think it might be altered just because of the profound change that took place in our lifetimes. The broken promise generation. I think a lot of people born in the early 2000s, we were shaped more by the 2010s. Because I think everybody got shaped by the 2020s. That's the whole thing that's crazy. I think everybody got shaped by that. Even though it wasn't birth to age 8, but especially us younger people, we were shaped by it more specifically and more particularly. But I wonder if that counts, just because of the amount of cultural change that was going on at the time. It was a pivotal moment, and so I wonder if that, but that's getting pretty theoretical. I'm aware that theory, I'm stretching it. I don't expect it to be some like, oh wow, you've cracked the code. Nah, I'm just having thoughts. I understand the birth to age 8 thing is still the metric for most personality development and how you end up seeing the world. I'm pretty aware of that. I'm not really thinking that I'm coming up with anything too crazy. Our generation was hyped up a lot, I think. And I don't mean that in the we were hyped up personally. I think life was hyped up to us. We were really on the cusp and on the precipice of something great, allegedly. I mean, there was so much energy towards the future being a great thing, and there were a lot of people who cared. Here's the thing, though. I'm saying all this as in this is what was portrayed to us. And this is the ultimate point that initiated this thought to begin with. Is that I think the world was sold to us as better than it was. And I think part of that was accurate. I don't think it was inaccurate. I think it's true that the world was actually a pretty good place and a pretty peak place back then in the 2000s and the 2010s. I don't think anybody was particularly lying to us consciously, but I think people had no idea what was to come. That's the problem. Like I've said before, a lot of people who grew up during the golden age, they thought that's just how things would be forever. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't know how they didn't know, because a lot of this stuff to me is common sense, that if you don't have a high enough birth rate, society will decay. Inevitably, because you're going to have a gap. I mean, you don't want to overdo it. That's the thing, right? You don't want to overdo it. Because I believe, although, yeah, because you'd have to look into this. Because if you have too many kids, that is good in the short term. It's actually really good in the short term. But the caveat is, it puts then the next at risk, because you constantly have to have more. Like, I would assume it's better to have more young people than old people at any given moment. So that's the conundrum, right? Because if you have a lot of young people, it's hard to keep that going without running into population management issues, which I think is more of the issue than population control, is population management. Because we have all these archaic systems and ways of doing things, with traffic being awful and all that. And I think a lot of people don't really want to acknowledge it. But it's not because of too many people, it's because of inefficient systems. Like, I had thought of a couple days ago a system where instead of your shift being, oh, I come to work at 8:30 or 7:30 or 8 or 9, it shouldn't work like that. Every person should have a specific minute and second mark that they're supposed to leave their house, and everything could get calculated in a way where it would put the least traffic strain on the roads. Because the way it works right now just doesn't make any sense. It should not just be some haphazard thing where every company says, oh, everybody comes here at 9 p.m. Sorry, 9 a.m. That makes no sense. Sorry. Everybody comes here at 9 a.m. and then every job just for some reason happens to be at the same time. It makes no sense. Things should be shifted. School districts should coordinate, and neighboring schools and districts should open at slightly off times from each other. Neighboring companies should do the same. All the commute routes should be mapped. And some people who want to come earlier can choose, and some people who want to be later can choose. But at the end of the day, some AI would calculate the way to put the least amount of traffic strain on the road. This would save so much. It would save so much. But the problem is human limitation, because a lot of humans would not like that. People do not like to have to be accountable for a time. People don't like getting punished for being late, and that's what would happen in this system, because the rule would be you'd have to be in your car, and the car would have to be started and moving at whatever your specific minute and second mark was. So I guess an easier way to say this is, in the future, when everybody has Neuralinks in their brain, all this stuff would be automated, and your car would obviously be automated. So if you weren't in it, it would just drive off without you. Now, I'm joking. That'd be funny, but I don't think they'd ever implement that, because it's too wasteful. I guess what they would do. Sorry, I just want to make sure it's clear what I said. In the future, they would make it so if you weren't in your car by your respective minute and second mark, it would just drive off without you. That's what I had said, but that is not how it would work. It just wouldn't budge. That's what would happen. You would just miss your moment, and then if you were not present in the car, then the car would just never drive for the whole day. It's those kind of systems, I think, that should be in order. It should be very strict, very exact, and I'm sure it would help traffic, because there's just no way it makes sense for all the companies to release everybody at 5. There's no way that makes any sense. And of course, that isn't the case. I mean, it's somewhere between 3 and 5, but it's just silly. I really wonder if this idea is ever going to actually become policy someday. It should. It definitely should, but I don't know if it will. And I don't know. I'm actually kind of surprised nobody's ever told me this idea before. You know, people older than me. I always think about that, like when I think of these things. I've never heard people talk about it. And that's always very confusing. I always expect, when I think of something to say, that somebody is going to let me know. Oh yeah, that's why this is the case, or that's why this isn't the case. You know, I'm always assuming that that's going to happen, and most of the time it doesn't. And these people are older than me. So that always kind of concerns me, because I'm just some guy in his I'm just a youngin' in his 20s. I mean, who knows what I'm going to be like in my 30s? But what I'm saying is, comparably, there's some people in their 50s or 60s where I just don't know that they know much, and I don't know what I want to call it. Golden age naivete, golden age innocence, golden age ignorance, something like that. Because they just had things so good and never had to think. I mean, I can imagine just how easy that is to have such an efficient, functioning economy. You never even have to think about money. You know, as long as you just work and do what you're supposed to do. Must have been a simple life. Become a homeowner. Essentially become rich automatically through that. At least have some kind of inheritance to pass on to your kids. It's really interesting. It's all really interesting how everything shapes out. But I think that's the problem, is none of the older people are cognizant of that at all. I think most people aren't. Most people really spend their time, and it's so hard for me to understand this, but they really spend their time fooling around all the time. And like I said before, I'm not immune to that. Sometimes I fool around, sometimes I do stuff for fun, but it's definitely a minority percentage of my time. I mean, there's some people where it's so inefficient the way they execute things. The thing I think I've talked about most of the time, well, I don't know if I've really said it before on this episode, is I've always seen millions of dishes, utensils, pots and pans in sinks at houses, and that's how it was like in my family too. Just tons of plates, utensils, pots and pans in the sink, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because I cook and I make food, but I use one pan, one pot, and that's it. Just one pan and one pot. In terms of a plate and bowl, I only use one bowl. That's like the only, I don't even use plates. And then in terms of utensils, I just use one spoon. That does it all. One spoon. And when I'm done with stuff, I just wash it. The way kitchen hygiene is conducted just seems so inefficient to me. And it really ticks me off because I live completely fine, and I create none of that mess and chaos. And I don't know how people don't notice that, or nobody's ever recognized me for it or anything. It's the most interesting thing. But that usually happens. I guess people don't pay attention. I guess that's another problem. People are not... I think we've said that before. If people paid attention, we'd have socialism. It would be just so easy. So easily. I would put so much money on that we would just have socialism. But people don't know what they're doing, so they vote for not their own best interest, which is really interesting, and it says a lot about democracy and the human condition. Isn't democracy a relatively young experiment? I think we take that for granted, don't we? The right to vote, to have an educated, calculated society. These are very recent concepts, super recent, totally unprecedented, and it's crazy that it's already going to be gone. We're already losing democracy. Or at least that would be my prediction if I had to make one. It wasn't even for that long, so I guess I want to look more into this because I'm not super aware of history outside of our country that well. And I'm just curious because now it's a thought. But if we're just assuming when America was made, that was really around the time democracy was first ushered in, because I'm assuming that's a pretty accurate metric. I don't know what other main countries would have had democracy around when America was created. Yeah, because if Columbus came, 400 years ago or something, I don't know if I'm getting that right, but I assume it was, because I know it's 1776 is the 4th of July day or something. And so I assume it was like a little over 100 years before that was probably Columbus, like 1600s. But I could be totally wrong. But regardless, even when America was first a democracy, it wasn't even really a democracy. It was more of a republic. And vote access was not widespread. It was mostly something that was gatekept by elitist class, right? And there were certain senators were appointed, they weren't even voted for. There was all kinds of that kind of stuff. It was much more of a republic and had these elitist tendencies, which I've thought about before, and I honestly, I don't know if that was the right way to do it. But I do think it sort of makes sense to have some kind of a weight. Oh, this is going to be controversial. Don't think this is final, but I just think that it really makes sense to have some kind of weighting when it comes to voting, because each person is not going to be cognizant enough to even vote for their own self-interest. And there are some people who just vote better than other people, I'm sure. I'm sure you can look back, regardless of where... Well, I think everybody probably would agree with that. because of the way things are polarized. But there's obviously people who are smarter at voting and dumber at voting. More dumb, not dumber. But I think I'm getting in the weeds. I think what we wanted to talk about was how short democracy has even existed. Hasn't it only been 100 years that America, you've been able to vote for your senator? I think it's somewhere around there. It might have not even been a full 100 years. We really take democracy and voting for granted. I mean, I haven't. But in terms of the culture at large, it's such a privilege, it's such a thing that for all of humanity just totally did not have access to rights or any of these things. And I think we're just going to see it all disappear. And I don't know that it's a particular party's fault. I don't think it's a single party's fault. I think these are cultural faults. These are people at large at fault for this stuff. That's what it is. I don't know that, one specific party. I mean, we've obviously talked about it before. The Republican Party has caused a faster growth of the rich. It has. But I think these are cultural attitudes that come through. Because if the culture was different, both parties would look completely different. And it's not like Democrats are immune from corporate control either. So I think it's all important factors to keep in mind. It's not about a this party, that party thing. It's really just about people's overall cultural attitudes and how both parties could be good. It could, I mean, obviously how it should work is you have two parties to have a different take on things, but they're both good. And that's obviously not how things work at all. It's kind of both are bought out by different interests and cater to different classes in different ways, and it's very tribal, really. It's just very tribal. That's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, as much as we like to think that we're now past a lot of that stuff, that's still all it really is. People trying to vote in their own self-interest, the rich voting in their own self-interest, the poor voting in their own self-interest. That's all it really is. It's still just tribal. I think it's interesting to think about. I do. But what can you do? Like I've said a million times, I think things just are how they are, and there's not much that can be done about it. People are who they are, and there's no change in that, really. There just isn't. I really wanted to push to be extra early now, from now on, but that's just not happening. Well, it's not happening today. I don't want to say it's just not happening, period, but I don't know. I think my theory was right about people shifting earlier when the sun's out earlier. And I think some people consciously do it, but I think a lot of people haphazardly do it. They're not aware of it. You know, kind of a deep thought to wrap up the episode with, completely has nothing to do with anything else. But as we've talked a lot about before, about how short form content is changing the way people think. And I'm realizing something. If you can't hold a consistent monologue, and I don't mean speech necessarily, I mean thoughts, or listen to a consistent monologue for at least about 30 minutes, I don't know how it's possible to know yourself. There's no way that you can understand yourself or your own feelings if you can't have a sustained conversation about yourself or a sustained thought about yourself. And with the shrinking attention span epidemic, that's the most dangerous thing, is a lack of self-knowledge and a lack of ability to understand the self. Super important, but I just don't think it's possible. So that's why in the future, it's probably just going to come down to some AI, because people aren't going to have it in themselves any longer to figure this stuff out. Isn't that crazy to think about? And I think it's true. Because even now, I think a lot of people, that's why they almost need a therapist, because they can't even take the time to just figure themselves out without one. And it's something that everybody before was afforded because you didn't have entertainment in remotely the same way. Sure, you had TV for a while, but that was not remotely as entertaining as the short form content. The short form content has just really pushed things to a whole new degree of boredom quenching. And so it's a very important skill to have. It's a very important skill to have, a monologue or a conversation. Now, for me, I'm very adept at this. I guess writing too. Some people are writers. I'm obviously a speaker. But being able to speak continuously, especially about yourself, is a very good skill to have, because now it's tangible. Now it can be analyzed. Let's say I needed therapy. All these transcripts could just be posted into an AI, and AI could make a bunch of comprehension about it and give me advice. And for people that think that doesn't, because that's not going to be as good as an actual professional, but even an actual professional, just hours of content to overlook and to analyze. So much easier. An average person has nothing. They have nothing recorded about themselves, really. They might have some things, but the average person can't even create it because they're so lost in consumption. And that's really crazy to think about, that is how humans are, and ultimately how a lot of people are, right? Just consuming and just getting addicted in that pattern. Not even being able to break out. I think it's relevant to point out. But it's that continuous thought, being able to hold a continuous thought, that's important. And I guess I tend to jump around a lot, so maybe it's not I mean, even I could have a bit more focus. But usually when I jump around, it's things within the same strain. Or it's still things that are good. It's not well, good is such a broad term. I don't know why I said it like that. Sorry. It's like things that are serious, things that are productive, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, that's all there really is to it. Sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought. I don't know what that's about. I'm being very weird. Being very weird right now, but yeah, I needed to charge my phone. I actually need to charge all my phones, my recording phone too, because that's the one that you really have to be concerned about. Is the recording phone. Because if I can't get the mic, that's really the main thing, and I've forgotten that before. And I think, oh yeah, the one time we did have to just use the other phone. Kinda not good, is it? It's not too good. Well, I don't know what else there is to really talk about. I think that was a good finisher, a good deep finisher. Very deep, super deep. As a matter of fact. But some ideas I had thought of that I forgot to record, or really get down on paper. At some point, is this series inevitably going to become repetitive? I think it's possible. Because I am repetitive. I'm not very good at not being repetitive, because it's hard to keep track, man. I think of a lot of different things, and so it's very difficult to keep track of it all and know what I have said or didn't say. So there's probably going to be some repetition, especially over a long period of time, but not that that's even a bad thing or even unnecessary, because I feel like with the level of content that I do, it's kind of necessary in a lot of ways, Because in order to really learn something properly, I think repetition is fairly necessary. And for a lot of people, and perhaps not everybody, but a lot of people, repetition is needed, really. For them to grapple something or learn something properly. It is for me. A lot of times a really packed podcast, you might be able to watch 2 or 3 times and kind of hear different things or learn different things in there each time. But yeah, I think it's time to wrap it up, guys. It's been schla, but now it's time to buy schla. See ya, schla.